Hey guys, I'm a Forester here with another knife review. Now some of you are probably thinking, well, it's about time, and it is. But I think that we're living in the golden age of knives. There are just all kinds of knives out there for us to buy and collect. Some of you might prefer traditional slip joints like this Northwoods Madison Barlow. I've had this knife a good while, really enjoy carrying it. You can see some use on that blade. Another category of knives that you might prefer are gentleman folders, like this one right here. This is my Klotzli Sarah. Got a review of this one. And I just love all my Klotzli knives. I obviously like both of those category of knives, but the large tactical folder is my favorite. They just fit my hands better. And today, I'm going to review a knife that I've wanted for probably around 10 years, and it's the Microtech Socom Elite. It's almost a grail knife to me. Now this is going to be a very fun review to make because it's all positive, and I'll be able to make a lot of comparisons with the other tactical knives in my collection. So let's go to the tabletop and get started. Well, let's get started because there's a lot of features that I want to cover. I want to start first by looking at the action of the knife because above everything else, this is a fun knife to play with. I think that's what counts the most to a lot of people. Let me ask you a question. Why do we enjoy the Benchmade 940 so much? And I think the biggest reason is because of the action. It's almost effortless to use. We can play with it for hours. Another category of knife that is a lot of fun are flippers. This is the largest flipper in my collection. This is the Hinderer XM24, and it opens just as easily as that Benchmade, even though it's a lot heavier knife and heavier of a blade. Now, the Socom Elite doesn't have a flipper or a fancy axis lock. It just has these dual thumb studs. But they're effective, and I think it opens just as easily as any knife in my collection. And it doesn't need any wrist action at all. Just by pushing it out with your thumb, it opens easily. I'd say it rivals any of my knives in the fun factor. The Socom Elite is a large knife that fits my hand very well. I need a minimum of a 4-inch handle on my knives to fit my hand, and this one has 5 inches to grip onto. The blade is 4 inches long, which makes the total length of this knife a little bit over 9 inches long. That's including this attitude adjuster that's on the end. But even though it's one of my largest knives, it's not the heaviest one in my collection. Let's bring out the scales and weigh it to see. So the Socom Elite weighs in at 5.1 ounces on my scales. Let's compare it to a couple of my other knives. Here's the Benchmade Crooked River. It's a little bit heavier at 5.2 ounces. And the heaviest knife in my collection is one you've already seen, this Hinderer XM24, and it comes in at a whopping 7.45 ounces. Now, its lightweight is a good thing, I think, because the Socom Elite is a very capable knife, but it doesn't weigh down my pocket. Now, speaking of carrying it in my pocket, the Socom Elite only comes one way. The clip is mounted here on the right-hand side, and it's mounted for tip-down carry. Now, that suits me just fine, as that's my preferred carry position. The Socom's light weight is due primarily to these aluminum handle scales. They're made of aircraft-grade aluminum, and they're strong enough for any task that I'm going to put it to. They come in 3 different colors, and I chose my favorite, this desert tan. It is a liner lock. Let me show you the lockup right there. And if you look inside, you can see the steel insert on the liner. That's put there to reduce wear and also prevent lock stick. Now, as I mentioned, the blade is 4 inches long. It's made of CTS 204P steel, which is stamped right there or printed on the base of the knife. Now, the blade steel of Socom has changed over time, And from what I read, as of early 2019, this is the steel that they're going to be using. I don't have any experience with it, but I'll definitely report back in future videos about it as I learn more about it. The blade has this beautiful stone-washed finish. I think you'll be able to see that. All the writing is on this side of the knife. Give you a close-up. It's made in the USA. And I learned that Microtech's headquarters are in Fletcher, North Carolina. That's likely where this knife was made. And that's reasonably close to my home. I'd love to visit it one day. I like that they put the manufacture date on it. There's no writing at all on this other side. Now, as a tactical folder, I'd say this knife is very secure in my hands, and I attribute that to the width of this handle. It gives it a lot of stability. I'm going to switch to metric on you here, but the width of this handle is 14 millimeters wide. And I want to compare it to two other knives in my collection. Here's my XM24. You've seen that a lot. They look about the same. I've measured them and they are exactly the same, 14 millimeters wide. But here's one that might surprise you. This is my Chris Reeve large Sebenza, and they're also both 14 millimeters wide. Now, before you call me a liar, I'm including the width of these wood inserts. So if that's the fair comparison, and I think it is, they're both 14 millimeters wide. I want to show you one other one because this is a large knife. This is my Benchmade 761, but it's much smaller, much thinner. It's 10 millimeters wide, and I've always noticed that this 761 is not as stable in my hand. Other factors that play a role in how stable the knife is in your hand are this finger choil and this thumb ramp right here, and those really lock my hand in. There's also plenty of jimping here on the back of the blade, on the thumb ramp, both above and below for different type of grips that you might take. But I would say that all the jimping is fairly coarse. It's not very aggressive. And of course there's these traction inserts. I'll try to give you a shot of those. These help, but they're not noticeably abrasive. Okay, it's time now for just a general size comparison, and just to review, this Socom Elite is 9 1/8 inches overall. That's including this attitude adjuster, and it has a 4-inch blade. First off, let's compare it to one you just saw. This is the Chris Reeve large Sebenza. You know, it's a large knife and could serve a tactical role. And I'm going to line these up based on the end of the handle. But the large Sebenza is 8 1/4 inches overall and has a 3.5 inch blade. Another one you just saw is this Benchmade 761. This is slightly larger than the large Sebenza. It's 8.5 inches overall and has a 3 5/8 inch blade. So all of these could be used for self-defense, but of course the large Sebenza is just a large gentleman folder to me. But let's move on up to some of my beefier knives. This one's one you haven't seen. This is the Real Steel Thor. This is the one that I'm saving for my grandson, assuming he wants it, which I think he would. I would. But it's 8 3/8 inches overall and 3 3/4 inch blade. So it's a beefy knife, but it's still smaller than the Socom Elite. Okay, here's one you just saw. This is the Benchmade Crooked River. I'll line those up. It's a long knife. It's 9 1/8 inch overall, which is the same length as the Socom, but it has a 3 7/8 inch blade, so it's just a little shorter blade. Now let's take this one away and bring out the last knife, which you've seen plenty already, the Hinderer XM24, and line it up. Okay, and it's probably one of the biggest knives I have. It's 9 1/8 inch long overall, so these three are the same length overall, but it has a 4-inch blade. But the cutting edge of the XM24 is much shorter than the Socom Elite because of the forward finger choil. So I think I could say that the Socom Elite is arguably my largest tactical folder, but it's not my heaviest. Now, I love all of these knives. They fit my hands perfectly and they're fun to play with. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and leave a comment below. I'd like to know what your favorite category of knife is. Y'all take care.